Today's video is brought to you by Marvel's Midnight Suns. Now let's talk about Magik. Some characters in the Marvel Universe are just cheating. Take Magik, for example. Not only is she a mutant, but she's also an expert swordsman, powerful sorceress, and the ruler of a whole hell dimension. Like other magically powered characters, Magik can't usually be separated from her magical history, even though she is a mutant and a member of the X-Men and New Mutants. Most of her important stories have been connected to her magical powers and the hell dimension known as Limbo. But first, of course, we gotta go into the history. Magik is a character that has always towed the line between hero and villain, though it's mostly due to the events that happened to her in her past. Also, the lack of having part of her soul might have something to do with it. Readers were first introduced to Illyana Rasputin in Giant-Sized X-Men #1 in May of 1974. She was Colossus's little sister and served as little more than a background character for several years. This would change when the character was kidnapped and brought to the dimension of Limbo, which, depending on the artist and writer's interpretations, is generally shown as a hellscape realm, which has demons and monsters and that kinds of stuff, but also sometimes alternate versions of established characters. But not all characters, usually just the ones that the writer needs for the story. She would reappear in Uncanny X-Men at number 160 in 1982, but now aged 7 years and explained now to be an expert swordsman and sorceress, as well as having the mutant ability to create teleportation discs, which actually allow her to step through time and space, though she still wouldn't be more than a background character. Eventually, fans would learn of Illyana's time in Limbo, and she would become a member of the New Mutants, the younger group of trainees at Xavier's school. The character would later die, but this being comics, the death wouldn't stick, and she would come back strong, being another important member of the mutant community, and eventually become the ruler of Limbo once again. The major moments in Illyana's life as a character are all tied to her magical abilities, the dimension of Limbo, and her history there. Born on a small farm in Russia, Illyana was the sister of Peter Rasputin, also known as Colossus, which I will definitely call him going forward so I don't do my horrible Russian interpretation of his name. She was brought to the United States when she was kidnapped by Arcade and saved by her brother and the X-Men. Afterwards, she stuck around in the background of some of the stories, but would eventually be kidnapped again and brought to the dimension of Limbo. She was brought here by Belasco, an ancient sorcerer whose goal was to free the Elder Gods and allow them access to the Earth. To do this, he kidnapped Illyana and attempted to corrupt her soul. She would then create bloodstones as her soul became more corrupted, which Belasco would use to fill the Bellatrix medallion, which would then be used to free the Elder Gods. Time would pass and Illyana would live a life of torment at the hands of Belasco's servant, Sim. But she would be rescued by Limbo's version of Storm, who trained her in the ways of white magic. But Illyana would also be trained in the ways of the Blade by Limbo's version of Kitty Pryde. With her new abilities, Illyana would attack Belasco's fortress and promptly be defeated and brought back under his control. Belasco would then decide to teach Illyana the ways of the black magic, believing that it would help corrupt her soul further. Not a great plan if I'm being honest though. Illyana uses all of her newfound abilities to create the Soul Sword, which she uses to defeat Belasco and take control of Limbo, banishing the sorcerer from her realms. She then opens up a portal back to Earth, joining the New Mutants, taking on the codename of Magik. Magik would then share several adventures with the New Mutants and the X-Men. Her powers would then begin to evolve. New armor would appear on her body when she wielded the Soul Sword, and she would fight against some of the most powerful magic wielders in the Marvel Universe. But her teleportation discs aren't an exact science kind of power. They would begin to get her into trouble. You see, after she opens up a portal, the New Mutants would accidentally be stranded in Limbo while the demons began an invasion of Earth. The mutants manage to stop them, and Illyana decides that to control the demons, she must resume her throne. But she is convinced to return to Earth and give up her magical powers, and toss the Soul Sword back into Limbo. Magik would then try to continue on with her life on Earth, but would contract the Legacy virus and die. But being comics, she got better, eventually. After the House of M events, Belasco decides that he's actually in love with Illyana, and tries to use his magic to bring her back from the dead, using what is left of her soul that is within Limbo. But he only manages to create Darkchild, a demonic version of Magik that is none of Illyana's soul. Disgusted with the creature, Belasco banishes her to the edges of Limbo. But when the new X-Men end up in Limbo, Darkchild decides to help them, fighting against the hordes of demons. She uses their trust to rip out a piece of Pixie's soul, and she creates a soul dagger with a piece of that soul, but is defeated by the new X-Men, upon which her memories of her life as Illyana are then returned to her. Darkchild would then send the new X-Men back to Earth and once again reclaim her throne as the ruler of Limbo. But it would later be discovered that the Soul Sword was trapped inside of Nightcrawler, and Darkchild would return to the X-Mansion to claim it, becoming Illyana once again. She would then have to journey back into Limbo with the X-Men and defeat the Elder Gods, joining the team once again afterwards. She would go on to engineer a plan to release the Elder Gods onto Earth, so that she could then use Legion, one of the most powerful mutants and generally locked away so that he can't destroy reality kind of guys, to destroy them completely. But the X-Men learn how she put the world at risk to get her revenge on what the Elder Gods did to her, and they lock her away, which she doesn't even argue with. After the events of the Phoenix Five, Illyana becomes more powerful, but learned that her teleportation discs were actually destroying parts of Limbo every time she used them. Dormammu tries to kill her, but she manages to absorb all of Limbo, seemingly causing the dimension to disappear. Afterwards, Illyana then uses her teleportation discs to travel back in time, where she begins training under a younger Doctor Strange, hoping to learn to control her abilities better. And there you have it, Magik. Now, there's nothing like a few wacky adventures inside of a hell dimension, but what new powers might Magik gain in Marvel's Midnight Suns? Well, you're gonna have to play to find out. And check back with us to learn more about the exciting histories of some of the characters that you'll be playing as in Marvel's Midnight Suns. Don't forget, I'm Benny, I'm known as the Comicstorian, and the video is brought to you by Marvel's Midnight Suns. We'll see you guys next time right here. Today's video is brought to you by Marvel's Midnight Suns.